Greetings, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Now That's the Truth. My name is Terrence. I am your host. In this episode and in the upcoming episode, we're going to tackle some of the fears that we Christians have that prevent us from talking about truth with the world. There might be the truth about the gospel, about who Jesus is, or it might simply be some truth that's a part of our Christian worldview, no matter what it is. There's truth out there that might make a huge impact on someone else's life, and I want to make sure we're able to share that. Some of the topics we're going to talk about in upcoming episodes are going to be pretty intense, some big ticket items. So we want to have the right answers, and if we're not dealing with some of these fears that we have in the first place, then we're just going to be afraid to talk about those bigger issues later on. So I want to tackle some of those fears, one of those today. And this fear I want to talk about today in this episode specifically is our fear of being labeled. What words someone's going to use to describe us. What's someone going to say about us? We're so afraid about being labeled that we just don't talk about truth at all. So, stay tuned. It's going to be a fun episode. Welcome back, everyone. Remember, if you like these episodes or you think they might be beneficial to someone else, please share these with your friends and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Now, before we get into the specific topics of the things people might label us if they find out what we believe, I want to give you a little bit of encouragement. For some of you, you might think, it sounds like a great idea. I would love to share truth. But lest I forget, it's hopeless. This younger generation is too far gone. Well, I say, think again, folks. Now, the younger generation might be a little lost, but I still think they're searching. I think they're looking for some sort of truth, and maybe they're not pleased with the answers they're getting from the world. Take a look at this article right here. This article from Newsweek from a few months ago. Are Gen Zers becoming more religious? Says that nearly half of young adults in England and Wales now say they believe in God or a higher power. Second paragraph says data in the U.S. reveals a similar trend with the percentage of young adults engaging with the Bible and committing to Christianity on the rise. So once again, folks, don't be discouraged, be encouraged. Do we have some work cut out for us? Yeah. Will it be easy? Not necessarily. But there is a generation of people, and every generation, quite frankly, there are people out there that are more open to truth than you might think. Have you guys ever heard anyone try to get out of talking about what they believe, their Christianity, by saying something like, the Christianity is something very personal to them. It's between them and God. It's not something they like to talk about much. It's private. If you've ever heard that said, and I know I've heard it said, maybe not in those exact same words, but people just want to get out of talking about it. They don't want to be labeled. That's one of the topics we're going to discuss. They don't want to have that discussion. But you know what? I think just saying those words alone, trying to get out of having a conversation about something that should be so important to you as your relationship with God, makes us look disingenuous. So, hear me out. Before we get to the main topic, I want to discuss one more thing, is how it's unnatural for us to keep this in. Think about some of these examples, if you will. An example of a brand new grandmother. A lady just had her first grandson, very excited. Do you imagine you'd be able to go up to this new grandma and somehow talk about the weather and avoid the discussion about the grandchild? Do you think she would say, my relationship with my grandson, it's very personal. Family matters are very personal. I don't like to talk about it. No way! She'd be glad to talk about her new grandson. In fact, she'd probably talk for the next 15 minutes to give you every single detail. You'd probably see some photos as well. Why? Because it's something important that's happened in her life. For you golfers out there, you might understand. Imagine getting a hole in one. Now, some of you watching this might have actually gotten a hole in one before, and goody for you. For the rest of us, oh boy, it seems like this an elusive dream. Can you imagine talking with someone maybe as old as me, in their 50s, playing golf their whole life, finally get that hole in one? And you talk to them at the clubhouse and they say that golf is very personal to them. They don't like to talk about these kind of things. They don't like to talk about their scores, hole in one. It's very personal. Of course not. They'd be giving you every detail about the shot, about the wind direction, about how they timed the shot just perfectly to make it right in between those windmill blades. You know, they'd be very proud of that. They wouldn't keep it to themselves. So why is it that we Christians act like that's normal? If you really are passionate about something because it's had an impact on your life, I think it's weird to try to keep it in. We need to share it. Plus, if we have some sort of truth that might change someone else's life or their eternity, is it right for us to keep it to ourselves? Think about another scenario. You live in Tornado Alley. If you do, I'm sorry. But you live there and a tornado comes through your town, hits the other side of the road, and wipes out your neighbor's house. Your house is okay. You're on the right side of the street. And your neighbor ends up telling you that he found out his insurance company isn't going to cover anything because of some clause that's in there, act of God or something like that. For some reason, the insurance company is going to make him foot the bill to have his house rebuilt. Now that's bad. Now what if you knew about the loophole? If you knew some truth about this plan because you had previously worked for that insurance company and you knew how he could get that insurance company to cover the bill, would it be ethical for you to not share it? If you knew somebody that was sick and you knew or had a cure, would it not be evil to not share that? We Christians, folks, need to be people that are not afraid to talk about truth because it matters. It really does. From the little things to the bigger things, it matters. If you guys have been around Christian circles for a while, you've probably already seen this video, but I want to share this. This is a vlog that Penn Jillette did. Oh, it was a while back now. In case you don't know who Penn Jillette is, he's of the Penn and Teller show. Penn and Teller, they do a comedy magic act. They're actually pretty clever, I must admit. Funny guys. And Penn Jillette is a outspoken atheist. Not only does he not believe in God, he thinks you shouldn't believe in God either. He's been on shows, he's written books. So anyway, you think if someone were to talk to him about Christianity, he'd probably just get mad, offended, whatever. Well, one day he had somebody that came up to him, was a fan, mentioned how much he appreciated the show that he did, but also said because he was a Christian, he couldn't help. He had to share what he believed about Jesus with Penn Jillette. And at that point, I think Penn Jillette must have had some sort of epiphany about people sharing the truth of Christ with others. Watch the video.
If you believe that there's a heaven and hell and people could be going to hell or not getting eternal life or whatever, and you think that, well, it's not really worth telling them this because it would make it socially awkward. How much do you have to hate somebody to believe that everlasting life is possible and not tell them that? I mean, if I believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that a truck was coming at you and you didn't believe it, that truck was bearing down on you, there's a certain point where I tackle you. And this is more important than that.
Now, I couldn't say it any better myself. I agree. At some point, what is wrong with us if we do not share the truth that we have? So, let's talk about some of these initial fears that we have. Let's deal with these fears and get ready to share real truth. That's right, folks. There's the bad word right there. Intolerant. Can you imagine someone saying that about you? You're intolerant. We don't want those kind of words thrown around. So we want to be careful what we say, right? Well, why are we afraid of being called intolerant? What's the big deal? What does that word even mean? A couple of years ago, probably because this word has been thrown around a lot recently, I decided I'd look up the definition. Found out that the definition basically meant being able to get along with people amicably with whom you disagree. You may not agree with what they do or what they believe, but yeah, you get along with them. You're on friendly enough terms, right? You're tolerating even though you don't believe the same thing they believe. Makes sense. The old Oxford Dictionary defines it as the ability or willingness to tolerate something, in particular, the existence of opinions or behaviors that one does not necessarily agree with. Sounds good. One interesting thing about that is I find it interesting that the word tolerant being thrown around as much as it is, or intolerant, that people are afraid of being called that when you're a Christian, because I think under this definition, doesn't it make Christians the most tolerant people on planet Earth? There's a ton of people that disagree with us. We don't hide away in a cave. We go to jobs, we go to social things. We interact with the world, even though they don't agree with us at all. I think Christians are pretty tolerant. So I was about to do this podcast episode, and so I didn't write down the definition before, so I thought I got to look this one up one more time. I looked it up right here recently and found the new Merriam-Webster dictionary says that tolerance is willingness to accept the beliefs, feelings, habits, or behaviors of another group, culture, etc. as legitimate, even when they differ from one's own. Wait a second. They just changed the definition. Can they do that? Well, I guess they can. They did. Why did they change the definition? And, well, what does it mean now? It may not seem like much. It's only a couple of words here. But these words, they matter. And it used to be that it was the ability or willingness to tolerate something that you don't agree with. Now this new definition says if you're going to be tolerant, you have to accept the beliefs, habits, or behaviors of another group as legitimate. Let's take a look at the definition of illegitimate, folks. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, legitimate means being exactly as intended or represented, neither spurious nor false. So if we put those two definitions together, you pretty much get, according to Merriam-Webster, that being tolerant means willing to accept the beliefs, feelings, habits, or behaviors that differ from your own as being exactly as represented, neither spurious nor false. Does that mean in order to tolerate someone, I have to agree with them? It doesn't even make any sense. Why did they change the definition? I have my own conspiracy theories. I think the definition has changed because they want it to try to stick to certain people, right? They want this definition to stick to a certain people group and stigmatize them or something like that. I don't know for sure. But whatever, under this new definition, it just doesn't make any sense at all. Because under this new definition, if being tolerant means agreeing with someone else, and intolerant means disagreeing with someone else, it kind of makes everyone on planet Earth intolerant. Think about it. When somebody points the finger at you and says you're intolerant, guess what they are? Apparently, they don't agree that your ideas are true. So, anyway, let's not be afraid of this word. There you go, folks. That's the big bad word. That's the one you do not want said about you, the B word. This is really way up there on the list of bad words for what's socially acceptable and not, right? You don't want this word said about you. This is a bad one. If you get called a bigot, oh geez, now you're in real trouble. Well, once again, let's take a look at the definition. If someone calls you that, what did they just call you? The definition of a bigot is a person who is obstinately or unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction, especially one who is prejudiced against or antagonistic towards a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. Okay. Notice one thing. You see that there's two definitions here, really. This definition is broken up into the actual definition, what a bigot is, and then it's broken into the other part, the especially these people. So let's just take a look at the actual definition right here. It says that it is when you are unreasonably or obstinately attached to a belief, opinion, or faction. Well, you got to be one of those two, one or the other. Well, what if you're reasonably attached to a belief? What if you know something the other person doesn't know? What if you've done your research? What if you really are confident about what you believe? And it's based upon good reason. Maybe we can exclude that one. What's the next one? Obstinately. What if you're obstinately attached to your beliefs? Well, what does obstinate mean? The definition of obstinate means stubbornly unwilling to change one's opinion or chosen course of action despite attempts to persuade one to do so. It means you're pretty firm in this belief, right? So, okay, all right, I get that. Stubbornly unwilling to change. But when you put these words together, these definitions, it makes me think of the previous definition we talked about, the word intolerant, right? How it basically means, according to the new definition, you just don't agree with someone else, which makes it a silly and useless word. Under this definition right here, we see that you're stubbornly unwilling to change your opinion unless you're attached to your own belief. Well, if someone throws that word at you, once again, aren't we in the same condition here where they have a different belief than you and they think you're unwilling to change your mind? But aren't they calling you a bigot because they're unwilling to change their mind? What do these words even mean? Why are we so afraid of what people have to say about us? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Often it's not the word itself. It really is, it's what's behind that word. It's kind of like when someone throws that universal hand gesture when you're in a traffic situation and someone's mad at you and they want to show you some sort of hand gesture, let you know they're not pleased with you. It's not so much the hand gesture, which is, I always thought was kind of silly. Kind of wondered what somebody who was unfamiliar with that hand gesture would think, if they didn't know what you were doing. You go, oh, hey, look, you got a finger. Hey, look, I have a finger too. Hey, look, I got two. What does it even mean? It's not so much the finger itself. It's, that someone wouldn't have given you that hand gesture if there wasn't something they were feeling about you. And we want to avoid someone thinking bad about us. Right now, we are in a society that has a real fear of words. A very sensitive culture that doesn't want to be hurt or offended or afraid of what everyone's going to say about us. Think about it. We have colleges where adults go to these colleges and they have to have safe spaces. Safe spaces where these kids can go so that no one's going to say anything bad about them, hurt their little feelings. They can go and feel that everything's okay. I think that's ridiculous. I grew up in the 80s. Safe space? What, are you kidding me? But you know what? Growing up in the 80s when there was no such thing as a safe space, helped teach me some of the facts of life. That in reality, not everyone is going to like you, and not everyone is going to agree with whatever you say, and that's kind of okay. This world we have is afraid of words. Do we Christians want to be afraid of these words too? Do we want to let our fear of what someone says about us cripple us just like it does someone else, prevent us from doing anything? I hope not. Now, so what do we do then when these words come out? When someone throws out the word intolerant, do we just give up? Abort mission, abort mission. Someone called me intolerant. Do we need to be afraid of that and let it prevent us from speaking? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Plus, let's be honest, folks. If someone knows you're a Christian, chances are you've already been labeled anyway, right? Let's just accept it. We've got our work cut out for us. There you go. But if someone does say one of these words, do note that you have hit a nerve. Whatever you've said in the course of your conversation with that conversation has hit a nerve, and you might need to back it up. Think about what words you said, and maybe think about how you can rephrase things to avoid getting this guy to put up his defenses and ruining your opportunity to share truth, right? We got to gain someone's trust. If we're going to have a conversation about truth, we need to gain their trust. How do we do that? Well, I think one of the key things we can do, folks, is if we speak with integrity, if we speak with kindness towards someone else, we can avoid being labeled something in the first place. We can avoid these words ever being thrown around. Think about it. How can we do that? So how do we avoid being labeled in the first place? Well, I've got a few tips. 5 tips to be exact. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. There might be some other really great tips out there, but I want us to focus on these 5 things today that I think if we employ these in our conversations and are cognizant and aware of these ideas and concepts, it can help us to have a conversation and keep that other person at ease, even if we're talking about some pretty big issues of truth. So, once again, this is not an exhaustive list. If you feel that I missed something that should have been in there, go ahead and go to my website, nowthat'sthetruth.com, hit the contact me page, and let me know what you think should have been added. And we can talk about it in a future episode. But for now, let's take a look at these 5 things that will help us have conversations. Number 1, don't label anyone else. You don't want to be labeled? Maybe they don't want to be labeled either. We've got to think about the words we use. Maybe derogatory words of describing someone politically, sexual orientation, maybe their religion. It's easy to just say things and not think much of it. Not only might it have offended the person and labeled the person you're talking with, but it might be setting a label upon a people group that this person you're speaking with, one of their friends is a member of that group, right? So no matter what it is, don't use words that might label someone else. I think that's a good start. Remember that second part of the word bigot. There was the first part of the word bigot. The definition meant being unreasonably or obstinately attached to a belief. But then there was that second part, which is about being prejudiced or antagonistic towards another person. It's very easy for us to say the wrong kind of words that can put us in that category, and then someone's immediately thinking that about us. So don't label someone else, don't label other people in the course of your conversation, and you can avoid being labeled yourself. Now, this next one right here might sound pretty familiar. It's from the Bible, the book of James. When James says if you want to have a conversation with people, you need to be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger. It says, listen, well, we get the slow part, right? Slow to speak. It doesn't mean speaking really slowly, but it means stopping and thinking about the words before you just blabber them out, right? And the quick to listen means being ready and attentive and ready to receive whatever someone's saying. Sometimes when you're talking with someone and they're speaking to you, it's not only the words themselves. Sometimes it's the intonation of the voice. It's the way they're speaking about or describing something. You can get a lot out of a conversation when you actively listen to what someone's saying. With that in mind, don't be so quick to have that next rehearsed response, right? I know some people, I've met them, where you're having a conversation, you can just see when you say something, they get the gleam in their eye, right? They are ready. They heard you say something, they're ready to respond because they got a great idea. And then they're just kind of anxiously waiting for their opportunity to get in there and say what they want to say. I think sometimes those people, and it could be any of us, at that point aren't listening as attentively anymore because we're so excited about what we want to say. Let's not be too excited to get our word out. Let's let that person finish what they want to say first, because then it might impact what we say as a response. Now, this one might seem pretty self-explanatory, but we just want to make sure we talk with someone. We're not talking at them. I think you guys get this idea, right? It's like when you go to church. Your pastor preaches, he talks to the congregation. He's talking with everyone. He's just talking. Now, how about that week when the pastor's talking about a subject that you have been dealing with or struggling with in your life? Suddenly you feel like the pastor's talking to you, at you. You think he's looking at you the whole time. It's kind of like that when we talk about some of these subjects of truth. Some of these subjects might be really close to someone's heart, and it might be they're on edge already, right? So I want to make sure we very carefully choose our words so that we don't set someone off. We don't want this to be a conversation where it's us against them, right? We're not trying to fix the other person because they have a problem. We're not talking at them. We're just talking with them, right? We don't want to make that person feel that we think they're foolish because they don't agree with us. Maybe they think you should agree with them, right? So it's not us versus them. We're just talking about ideas in the arena of ideas. We're not talking at them, and we got to be careful that we don't do that. Remember to keep it how we're talking about an idea. We're not talking about them. Next, don't get offended. The idea of having a conversation, and the reason we're discussing this in this episode, is because we want to have a conversation. We want to tell someone what we believe. Well, if we're going to have a conversation, then the chances are that person is going to want to tell you what they believe. Be open to listen and don't get offended. Just like they might not like what you have to say, and we have to be very careful with the words that we use. Maybe they won't be as good at being careful with the words they use. It may be very easy for them to sputter out some word that is offensive. We got to make sure we don't get offended by that, because sometimes when those words are used, maybe even those words we talked about earlier, That they're not necessarily directing those words at you. They just might be afraid of truth. A lot of people are these days. Just don't get offended when they say something that you don't like to hear. Now, the last piece of advice that I have for us to be able to have good quality conversations with someone without them thinking that we are intolerant or a bigot or something like that is to, number 5, want to make sure we're sharing truth for the right reasons. What are you talking with someone for? That's a good question. See, it's kind of like a dog can smell fear, right? People know your intentions. They can sniff it out. So we've got to make sure that our intentions are what they should be. Just like when two people come to your door, a couple of young men in white short sleeve shirt, dress shirts with the little ties, you know exactly what their intention is, right? You open the door, you know, okay, I know what these guys are selling. Likewise, people can think that way of us when certain topics come up or they find out what we believe. So we just got to make sure, number one, be careful with the words we use, but make sure that we are sharing the truth for the right reason. Why are we talking with someone about this? Is it to get them to come over to your side? Or is it simply because maybe we Christians have found some truth that we can't help but share? Like that new grandmother that can't help but talk about her new grandchild. Isn't it kind of like us that we've had something so dramatic happen in our life that to not share it seems crazy? Like if you just went to a new restaurant, had great service, great food at a great price, chances are you're going to tell one of your friends about it. Why? Because something that happened in your life that was meaningful or special. That's the way as Christians should be presenting whatever truth it is that we're presenting. Just like that. That we feel we want to talk with someone about it because maybe they're worth hearing it. Maybe we care enough about them to share it. I have never once, ever in my life, met someone who became a Christian, gave their life to Christ Jesus, and after becoming a believer said that they wish they would have waited longer. Geez, they became a Christian too soon. Think about all the fun they could have had in the world if they just decided to wait a few years. No one says that. Everyone says, why didn't I come to Christ sooner? Because their life was changed for the better. Maybe we want to share truth for that reason, because maybe that person's life could be changed for the better, right? So make sure that we're sharing truth with someone because we think that person deserves to know it, and they deserve to hear the truth correctly and accurately. All right, well, we made it through this episode, folks. I wanted to give a quick summary about this, about why we should not worry about being labeled. Worse things can happen, folks. Worse things can happen. Number one, look at those definitions, those labels. Look at those definitions together, maybe, and ask the other person what that means. It's okay to ask someone what the definition of whatever it is they're calling you means to them.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Right? They may be using the word the wrong way, and they may not even know. When you really think about it, it might make them rethink calling you that word. Okay. Another important thing is that some people are going to label you before they even know you if they know you're a Christian. I mentioned that earlier in the episode. It's just a fact of life. Also, they might label you because of your association with Christianity. That means they might label you as affiliated with Christ Jesus. Jesus was labeled. Jesus was libeled. If our Lord was labeled and libeled, and someone else wants to label me too because of my affiliation with him, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Now that's the truth. Well, thanks so much for tuning in today, folks. I hope that you got some beneficial stuff out of this episode. I hope that this helps you have the kind of conversations with people without the fear of what you might be labeled. And I hope that you got some advice on how to have those conversations without bringing up anyone's defenses. So, if you liked this episode, please share this with your little buddies, and remember, subscribe on my YouTube channel. Now, in the upcoming episode, we're going to talk about some more fears that people have that prevent them from sharing truth. Specifically, we're going to talk about how people are afraid to share truth because they just don't feel qualified, or they just don't feel that they have all the answers. I'm not the one that should be talking about this. Leave this conversation to the professionals. Well, let's talk about that fear, and let's talk about how we can deal with that one in the upcoming episode. Once again, thanks. See you next time.